Once upon a time, not so long ago, Cilike was in a book I read, and oh, how I loved it so. I was a young boy then with so much imagination, in a world where the grown-ups were grown-ups and children were children. For her to come out of the book, another 10 years it took, without knowing what will really happen. The most I remember is Christmas and the war and the piled up army uniforms on the floor. My father made them. The whole factory was working for the army before they called him up to go to war to serve his country. And then the war broke out. The soldiers started to fight, shoot and killed and bombed everything on sight. The war left my beautiful city in ruins as far as the eye could see, and the people said the enemy did this. They come to destroy our beautiful country. I don't know how long we were in the bunker hiding, my mother, my sister and me, with all the people praying constantly. When the news came that the war was over and we could come out from under the ground, but my father still had to be found. Outside the sun was shining again and we could feel the wind blowing again. We could breathe fresh air again, and how nice it was walking again. But we had to praise the victorious Red Army and sing communist songs, while all we could eat is horse meat and raw potatoes and look through the junk. Eggs sold for 1,000 panger. It was on the heart to get least. They took everything away from us. In my school they called me the son of a capitalist. They took 2/3 of our land, put mines all around us. We become prisoners without friends. And the people said, God help us. Cilike with the family escaped to the west, and we left behind the Iron Curtain to hope for the best, because what will be next, no one could be certain. The flowers began to bloom again on the roadside and on the trees. The school started to teach again, and the people began to live again without fears. The people began to believe that if you want to make it, life could be wonderful, that enough time was wasted no matter who bosses or who rules. So they started to clean up all over the city, everywhere, the guns, the bombs, the tanks, but the war left there. Then the winter came by, was watching how the shiny stars lit the sky, with the moon looking down and the snowmen coming by. Sitting around the fireplace and drinking hot honey and lemon tea, I thought of Cilike, who now was living in Germany. Then came a turnaround and changed everything. We moved to a place called Boyle. We moved there just because we could live with my grandmother. My grandmother was German. Her family, I don't know, took us to church every Sunday, and her hair was fair from head to toe. Once she lived in a castle and had many servants, horses and land, and she gave birth to 9 children. She taught us to speak German, and she took very good care of us then. Then came something very crazy. My mother opened a pub that slowly but surely changed my life. In growing up, I took someone's horses and carriage while the owner was drinking inside, and I rode them around the streets with the two horses running wild. I had a dog, a Saint Bernard. He was the biggest dog in town, and I had pigeons. I sent them up, and when he got scared, I called them down. Sometimes we rowed a big boat to the other side of the Danube River and went into a mysterious forest with wild animals and even wolves living there. With the boys we played wars with leftover real guns and knives and shoot at flying birds and thrown into many fights. Haranglab was a nice park in Baja, and in the middle of the park was a large wooden cross. On the cross was Jesus. On his head was the crown of thorns. Every day the drunks made trouble and hard. I was worried and I wanted to be there to be my mother's bodyguard and protect her, to have no fear. But my mother saw what was happening to me because she closed the pub and we moved to a place called Budakeszi. Budakeszi was a nice place with mountains and forest. We just paid the rent and watched the clouds rolling by because we didn't have internet then. My mother became the best worker in Budapest clothing factory. They give her 5 gold stars for everyone to see. Then I became sick with very high fever. I stayed in bed all day and all night, but I didn't get better because, believe it or not, I died. My soul left my body and I heard the angels sing. I saw a city with people there all happy and they were calling for me, but I woke up in fright because I didn't want to leave my family. Then somebody came and gave me a book and I started to read Cilike. She had so many funny adventures in the book. She was so wonderful in there. In my school, I began to make friends. We played football and many other games. I learned English and to play the piano, but something I always will be ashamed. In school I sang solo to Stalin, the father of all children, until his picture came down from the wall. That was what they said because he murdered his own people in the war then. Later, when I became a photographer, I was just graduating in Budapest High when someone left hundreds of leaflets to come and demonstrate without a fight, because many people felt that it is time to end the occupation and the lies, that it is time to take our country back and send home the unwanted Russian arms. I went, but the peaceful demonstration ended with a gunshot, and in the peaceful streets soon started an armed conflict where an army of young students was ready to sacrifice their lives and fight to the end. There is no words to describe the courage of these young men to fight with only guns against tanks. The fight went on day and night, and the young heroes won the fight. The Russians are leaving, the Russians are leaving, heard from everywhere the joyful sound. Those days I'll never forget. Believe me, how it felt to be joyful and free. I can't describe it. You could just wish that you could have been there to see. However, our happiness was short-lived. Blame it on the America where our peace treaty was signed to the big world powers, and all it was just a pack of lies. They saw us as a nobodies whom they could crush any time. Nobodies in the eyes of the Red Army, but against us they committed crime. Once again our young ones died, their bodies laid out like war-torn bloody carpets all over the footpath. Run, run, escape if you can before they catch you and force you to the ground and later execute you. Run, run before they shoot you down. And the mass escaping began. Austria. I must go to Austria to be free again. In Budakeszi I saw a young boy walking. Where are you going? I asked the boy about 10. I'm going to America after my brothers. He said, but like this you can't go, like this you freeze to death. So I put warm clothes on him, shoes on him, and said goodbye, and started a dangerous journey. I said to him, I will do my best. I will try. I can't write it all down, what happened after with me, but this 10-year-old was faster than me, and I lost him, unfortunately. I just went on walking by the rail lines by night, jumping on anything that was moving the right, and trying to keep out of sight. Again, I can't write it all down, what happened with me, the long months of trying, and the people that walked with me. My capture, the Russian prison, and the Hungarian captain who let me go free. But I can write about another great feeling when I crossed into Austria, led all the people and the child. We all prayed and thanked God when we reached the other side. It was like Christmas Eve. The streets were white from falling snow. The bells were ringing, a couple were getting married, and there were lots of people saying to us, hello. Before we all wanted to know how it feels to feel free. At last, now we know it. It is like dying and going to heaven eternally. In Austria, someone came to me after I played my autumn sonata and offered me a scholarship in the Vienna Conservatorium of Music. I said no thanks. I want to go to America. But instead I slept on railway station benches, or was taken in by a royal family in London town, and I lived with the poor, or I lived with an upper kind. I worked in hotels as a cleaner or a chef. I worked in factories, on machines, or just swept, just name it, and I had done it. I never had any rest. At night, many times, I woke up with a fright, thinking we heard gunshots or a bomb blast, forgetting our whereabouts. But is this all? This is it? I ask wandering in the night, writing my song called Starlight Melody, or just staying up all night, remembering my mother, my sister, and the horrors and the fights. Is there any place I could go and fight? Let's go and join the British Army or the French Legion. Crazy, but I joined the British Army and I got a bomb disposal uniform. After a while I deserted before the bomb exploded in Wembley Stadium. I left. But now I must leave the country. I'm a deserter. I didn't know that Cilike is in Australia yet. But now I am on an Italian ship. Is this the end of my story? Wait and see. I'm going to Australia looking for Cilike, and maybe, just maybe, she's also looking for me. Then it happened, I found my Cilike, and I loved her from the start. I asked her to be my wife, and I promised her that we will never be apart. Is this the end of my story? No. May I add why? Because you can see us in our beautiful children's eyes.